What do we think? Is 4 too young to be thrown in and taught by the teachers? Is that something that should be kept aside for parents to deal with?
Well, I think initially Susan Pappas has got the right idea in her school, the good intentions to encourage inclusivity, but I think she's going about it the wrong way. I think Pride March was probably just to run in conjunction with the local Pride March. But I'm sorry, I just think that marching has connotations anyway. I'm not sure how she was going to do it, but why young children, 4 years? I think that starts to get confused, because if you take 4-year-old children on a march, they then say, well, why am I on this march? I'm certainly not going to give them a sex education, that's for sure. I'm very old-fashioned about that, you know, until they're a certain age. So I think the best thing that she could have done was to, in her whatever these classes, get-togethers, assemblies that she has to increase inclusivity, they normalise it for the kids. That's my idea of inclusivity, that you make things normal. You don't have to make a song and a dance about it, it's just normal. So if a child comes along and says, why have you got 2 daddies? Then it's opened up and it becomes normal. As soon as you get hysterical about it, then the aunties will start to have a go and bully and, you know, and all those other
I know that
things.
Stacey Archer's got a nice young opinion on a different opinion, and I just wanted to make, I know you've written about it in your book, because you've had both female and male relationships, so you're very well qualified to actually say what you've just said. And on a general basis, I feel that 4 is just too young to be taught about sex. I just want children to be children for a while, and I know that in the Netherlands and so on, they start teaching them very early about sex, and their proof is that there's less teenage pregnancy. I understand all of that, but I just think 4 is just too young.
Sex,
well, for me it is anyway.
I think, for me, I completely understand what you're saying, and I do agree with you on certain extents that did they need to necessarily do the march, but I don't believe that it was about teaching them about sex ed. I believe it was about, you know, when they're on the march and they do turn around and say, why are we marching? It is an important message to teach children of any age that certain things, people were really oppressed for who they fell in love with, which should never happen, and we don't ever want it to happen again, and that is why we march. And I don't think that that's a bad message to teach a child at any age.
But do you think it's too young, though, at 4? Do you think they would actually understand
I don't
at
think
4?
they would be sitting there and telling... I don't think it was to teach them about sex.
But you would have to explain... No, but you'd have to explain why you're having the march. You would have to explain the thrust of the march.
A group of people who, you know, years ago, people didn't think it was OK to love who you want to love. And I think that's enough to tell a 4-year-old, you know, that we should never be like that again, and we should accept people for who they love and who they are. But I know what you're saying. You don't want it to be taken any further at that age, because they are very young.
Certainly not in terms of sex education.
No, absolutely
That is a
not.
given, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But maybe, I mean, if we weren't so obsessed about sex, it would be much easier. Maybe the Danes or whoever you were talking about, maybe they're not so obsessed about it as we are, but everything comes down to sex. At the end of the day, it's an activity that procreates, and you know, and other things. But it's you know, we get so exercised about it. It's ridiculous.
I'm not
Let's just
sure that
calm
this
down
march
about
was
it.
about sex.
No,
though.
exactly.
I think it was
more about acceptance, isn't it? It's more about preaching acceptance, I think. Well, that's what it certainly should be, anyway. I do know that apparently a lot of children within the school at various ages were sort of calling each other names and saying gay in a completely derogatory, wrong fashion, and that was partly why this sort of educational type march was coming into play within the school.
It is nice
and to be fair,
hear that it's part of the curriculum now, and that we are educating our children, because we cannot let times go back.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the parents that didn't agree with it, they were up against a ferocious backlash from parents who did agree with it, who did want the march to go ahead within the school. So there's clearly, you know, it sort of polarises views, but certainly it's up to a parent, I guess, to teach a certain amount.
Yes, but then as one of our makeup girls said, she lives in Brighton, and she said, well, in Brighton there are, you know, celebrations and festivals like that all the time. So it is an acceptance. And I don't think anybody would argue with the celebration of it. I don't think at all.
No, absolutely not.
But it just brings up the general point of what age, and I agree with Pam, actually. For me, anyway, I just think 4 is too early.